Hey, it's Rebecca, and you're listening to Resilient by Design. Today, I'm going to talk all about establishing boundaries with your clients and how to really set your client expectations. You know, it's something that I'm still working on. I think especially as women, we tend to want to please other people so much that what happens is we let them a little bit walk all over us. And in our aim to be service-oriented and to please other humans, we think we're actually offering and being the best that we can be to them. But in actual fact, it's not always valued or recognized. So I'm going to walk you guys through sort of my 2 cents, if you will, on this topic. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the steps that I follow to maintain and attempt as best I can to establish those boundaries as clients and with our clients, and then what I do when a client pushes back. So enjoy the episode.
All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business.
Are you as tired as I am working in a bubble? I mean, shoot. It's time to maybe socially distance with other people. That is why I love coming to the Collective Workspace. If you are someone who is looking for a little bit of stimulation, a lot of beauty, the Collective Workspace is a really great place to go. It is a co-working space for designers, architects, and builders in Toronto, and they're opening a second location this spring. They have flex workspace and offices starting at $120 a month. There's boardrooms, a podcast booth, which is where I am right now, concierge storage, and a trade-only design library. You can find out more, or if you want to book a tour, go to thecollectiveto.com. Okay, so clients. I mean, we love them, and at the same time, they can make us crazy, right? I can't even tell you how many conversations I have had with my designer friends where we say, first of all, I just want to, before I go into this episode, if any of my clients are listening, I want you to know that I love you. And anyhow, I'm so fortunate that the clients I do have will listen to this and recognize the frustrations of a service-based business. But I want to say that, I can't tell you how many times I've chatted with my designer gals and we've said on more than one occasion, I mean, wouldn't this job be so great if you could just eliminate the client? Right? And it's so funny because I'm such a people person and I love working with people. But I think as a creative, you're working so hard to come up with this perfect combination of texture and layers and space and wallpaper and lighting, and it all fits together. And as soon as somebody else, typically your client, peeks their little nose in there and says, well, that light fixture's a little more modern than I was thinking. Well, shoot. Now I'm taking it personally because, and not only am I taking it personally, well, I used to, I'm better at that now. We'll talk about that. But I'm like, okay, fine. But if I change the light, everything has to change. Am I right? I think that sometimes, and I mentioned this just in the intro. So I want to expand on this idea that we, as designers, as decor professionals, as women, most of us, and if men are listening to this, then this is good insight for you. Although I'm sure this is no shocker, that most women, and not everyone, I know lots of great designers who are very firm and they do not let anyone walk all over them. But most women at least I have been the type of person who is a people pleaser, who really wants to make my client happy at all costs. And often what happens is that cost is my sanity, my ability to be present with my family, with my husband, with my children, with my friends, my ability to just completely unwind and find balance in life. And sometimes my desire to please leaves me very emotionally and mentally drained. And I mean, if you've had this happen, you know what I'm talking about, that it's the idea that I'll just go that extra mile. So let's see. Let's come up with some examples in case you're not following. I had a client once who was a lovely individual, but, was a little borderline. I don't even know what the word was, like very, there's no way she's listening to this podcast, so I can say this. A little Jekyll and Hyde, like from one extreme to the other, and got really obsessive over things, like a dog with a bone and wouldn't let things go. And I used to get text messages from her late at night. Like it would be 11 o'clock. I'm finally putting my phone away. Yes, I should not have checked it, but I check because it goes ding, right? I get a text message and it's a message. And then I see the little ... bubble. Oh, there's more coming. ... bubble. Oh, there's more coming. And then, an essay later, she's venting to me about the contractor. And then this was done and this was, and like, why was this selected? And like going on a tangent via text message, which because I'm the type of person who takes things rather personally and really I care so much. I'm so invested in wanting to make the client happy. Immediately my blood pressure rises. I'm anxious. I turn to my husband. I'm like, Chris, oh my God, look at this message. And of course my husband's like, she's effing crazy. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, just deal with it tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, I want to deal with it tomorrow. But right now my mind is all of a sudden spinning, racing. And I'm like jolted into this like panic mode, right? I will tell you now, I do not give my cell phone to clients. Like I don't give them my cell phone number. I've had in the past with clients saying, yes, I love that navy sofa. It's great. Great. Sign off, place the order. The navy sofa arrives. Well, Rebecca, it's funny, it doesn't look like it did in the picture. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, I don't know. Right. And of course, back then the sofa had arrived. There was nothing else but maybe a rug in the room. So they couldn't see everything in relation to the other. Drapery's not hung. Occasional chairs aren't there. Coffee table's not there. Lamps aren't there. So of course, all they're thinking and obsessing over is the one sofa, which I will tell you, that's why I do a total big reveal now instead of higgly-piggly. But what I would do is I would say, oh, you don't like it? Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. No, I can totally see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Let me contact the supplier. Let me see if they have a different option. Let's look at what our options are. Let's go back to the drawing board. What? Who was I? And the reason I'm saying these stories is because I know there are others out there who are still in the thick of it. You're in the weeds. You're dealing with these clients who are pushing you and you just maybe feel a little out of control. Having a boundary with your client is not a bad thing. It's probably like having boundaries with children. It's probably good to have those. I'm still working on that side of life. I feel like, honestly, I've put so much more attention and focus, for what it's worth, into bettering myself as a business owner, designer, that I really could probably apply some of that to my personal life. Maybe one day I'll start a podcast about that. But those are just some examples of, the client pushing back. And, it can start even just as simple as at the very beginning. When you say, here, this is my 7-step process. This is going to be the fee. The client could say, and I've had this too, well, can you do it for less? And in the past, I would have said, okay, well, I mean, yeah, maybe like maybe we don't go to site as many times and It never works out in my favor. It only works out in theirs. And then once you've given an inch, they will take a mile. They will take a mile. And it's not that people are bad, but clients, they're thinking for themselves, right? As they should be. And so we need to remember that as a designer, as much as our client matters and we want to service them, we have to think for ourselves too. I'm going to remind you that this is a business. You went into business not to be a charity, not to run around like a personal assistant. You went into business to be creative, likely, and make money. Like, honestly, probably you went into business for yourself thinking, this is going to be wonderful. I'm going to have so much flexibility. I don't have a boss. Newsflash, you do have a boss. Actually, you have many. They're called clients. So you didn't get away from that part. The flexibility, though, you can have. And I'm going to talk right now after I take a sip of my tea. Because I'm sitting in the collective podcast booth and it's so wonderful, but the air conditioning's on. I'm like, bro, chilly, and it's like 30 degrees Celsius outside. Anyhow, I'm sniffling. Okay, so how do you get ahead of this? How do you prevent these awful, uncomfortable situations, stressful situations, money-losing situations? How do you prevent them from happening? And I will tell you, it starts with one thing. You have to set your clients' expectations early and often. This is not the first time you've heard me say this, but I want to talk about it and how it relates to setting those boundaries. So here are a couple things that I do to set boundaries from the very beginning. So from the very beginning, I do not list my cell phone number on my website. If somebody wants to get in touch with us, they have the landline number, which, to be honest, no one's really answering anymore because we're still all working remotely and we check the messages like once every 2 days. Terrible, terrible habit, I know. But most people do send us an email. And then we coordinate and we set up a discovery call. We do not give them my cell phone for that. We say, what is the best number that we can reach you at? And I call them from whatever number I want. I mean, sometimes it's from my cell phone, sometimes it's from the landline, just depends. So that's one thing. The other way we set those expectations and boundaries early is by having a set process and a set fee structure. So there's none of this wishy-washy, yeah, we charge hourly, and then the client's going to push back on how many hours. No. It's a flat fee. It's based on square footage for the design. And then in the implementation, it's based on a percent. That's it. It's in the contract. And I show them the contract in the consultation. Even before the consultation, I talk about it on the phone in our discovery call. I've debated putting it on the website, to be honest. I'm not there yet, but I think I might, when I redo my website later in the year, I think I might put an example range of design fees per phase, just so clients understand and they don't waste their time. They don't waste their time calling me. Isn't that awful? I only want to take on a certain number of jobs a year at a certain level. And so I'll wait, feast or famine, until I get the really great job. Anyhow, that's the sidebar. Then, so we've said this is what the fee is. It's not negotiable. The only way the fee could change would be if the scope changes. So if you decide you don't want to do the dining room right away, you just want to do the kitchen, great. I can re-quote that, but it's not like, can you do it for less? Nope. Also, I can control those parameters, but that's a conversation for another time. Okay, so that's one way. The other way is when they do hire us, we send them a little welcome to Rebecca Hay Designs guide or welcome pack, or whatever you want to call it. And in there, it lists our methods of communication. And it says that the preferred method of communication is email. And then I list all the people in the organization that are relevant to them, who they may come in contact with, right? So like our admin, myself, the different associate designers on the team. And then I put their email and I always put the landline. Now, things are a little tricky right now because we're not all working out of the office. So I haven't updated it. I don't give people cell phones out, but that's how we do it. And then I do say, like, obviously, if it's an emergency, I'm skipping ahead. I also say that we I don't know, have the wording in front of me, but it's something polite. It basically says that we do not communicate evenings and weekends. Unless, of course, it's an emergency, like your pipes burst and you can't get a hold of the plumber or something like that. It is not, we are not available 24/7. If your drapes, if you're not happy because your drapes are puddling too much, that can wait till Monday. Like, we're not freaking saving lives here. And I honestly, I know this sounds crazy because obviously we're decorating and we're designing and we're building, but I have to remind myself on a daily basis that I am not a surgeon. I'm not saving lives. This perceived catastrophe in the client's mind is not catastrophic. It can be fixed. And I have to continually remind myself that, because I tend to leap into like triage, like emergency mode when a client's unhappy with something. And so that's where I have to continually remind myself and be very cool, calm, and collected, which can be kind of tricky. And I know somebody here might be thinking, oh, well, that's really well and nice for you, Rebecca, but like, how do I actually get them to agree to that? Like, what if they just ask for my cell phone number, right? Can I tell you, not one client has asked for my cell phone number since I started doing this. Shocking. Now, I can tell you that I have a team. So I think if you're a solo, it might be a very different scenario. And so you might want to use your cell phone, but maybe you get a separate phone. I know it sounds like crazy added expense, but maybe you have a work phone. Just a thought. I don't know. People used to do that, right? They used to have like the BlackBerry, and then somebody had the regular flip phone. I remember when I worked at Earl's, I worked at the restaurant. There were always these regulars that would sit at the bar, and they would put their phones on the bar, and it was like 2 BlackBerries, or like a BlackBerry and a flip phone. I remember thinking, oh my God, how annoying to have 2 phones. But hey, people do it. Okay, so that's one way is to help with the communication, right? Is to sort of set those boundaries early on and say, no, this is how you can communicate with us. There's no emergencies in design unless it's like a construction related. And usually the contractor is the one you'd call anyway. But anyhow, if we're into construction and a client is emailing or calling us on the weekend, like we definitely pick up and we're like, hey, what's going on? And our project managers have obviously give the client their cell phone because they're the ones on site, boots on the ground. But for the most part, I would say our clients have been extremely respectful of that. So it's been really interesting to see. Okay. The importance of open communication prior to and during the construction period and how you are going to visit site is also extremely important. Establishing that from the beginning. We have started to tell our clients that included in our implementation fee is a site visit once a week. If I'm needed or if someone on my team is needed for something urgent in addition to that, of course we will go, but the expectation is that we will always go once a week. Unless, of course, there's literally nothing happening on site, like we're at a standstill because we're waiting on a permit or whatever it might be. But that way it kind of lets them know. And I always remind them, I said, we're not project managers in the sense that we're not the ones scheduling the trades. We are not there to breathe down their backs and oversee them as they're installing the vanity. That is not our role. Our role is to ensure that the design gets implemented and manage that aspect of it. And I think having that clear conversation is so, so important, because then you don't get the client coming at you calling like, well, why weren't you there? What's going on? We expected you to manage this. And that's a tricky thing. And I know not everyone listening does full service project implementation, project management, but I would say like the more you can talk about it early before they've signed on the dotted line, the better. The last thing that I really wanted to dive into about establishing boundaries and setting client expectations is when it comes to selecting your goods. Because I can tell you the biggest game changer for me in getting clients to say yes and sign on was when I started selecting, like pre-selecting every single freaking element that's included with the design. So I'm going to use an example because I say this all the time. But then I always get questions from designers like, oh, you're picking that. You don't pick the hardware, do you? Yes. So here's what I mean. If I'm designing a kitchen and they've paid us for the design. We design the millwork, right? We do elevations. We chat with our millwork company to get their drawings, whatever, back and forth, get pricing. So we're picking the cabinet door style. We are picking the paint color or material finish. We are picking the actual counter slabs. We are picking the actual backsplash material. We are deciding on any accent lighting and actually specifying it. We're picking the pendant lights for above the island. We're also selecting the stools. We are selecting the flooring. We're selecting the cabinet knobs and pulls. We are selecting the type of glass that's going in that glass cabinet. We are selecting the inserts that go into the kitchen, the type of pullouts that they're doing for the garbage, the spice pullout, what have you. We are selecting the appliances, every single appliance that we require. We are selecting the window treatments. We are having somebody quote the exact style that we want. We pick the exact fabric that we want, and we know the exact quantities we need. I think I've covered everything. If there's details on the ceiling, we definitely select that as well, and we do our lighting plan. I think I've covered everything. That's for a kitchen. We do all of that behind the scenes so the client is not involved. And it's really important if you want to do this, that you let the clients know that in your discovery call. Because I find sometimes that's a deterrent, because some people get excited and they want to be a part of it. And that's awesome. I get it. I would be that client, but that doesn't work for me because it just doesn't work for me. I did that for many years and it was a back and forth. What about this? In so much indecision. And I would say that the best way to control that is by taking it on yourself and saying, I'm going to present you when we've pulled everything together. Don't worry. You have a round of revisions. So if there's something in there that it's not really sitting well with you, we can tweak it. We can change it. We can, make the island longer, for example, pick a different countertop, maybe new lights, what have you. So that really, really helps. What it also does, and this is kind of a side benefit beyond like getting the clients to just see that you're the professional and like follow your process as opposed to you following their process. Because I've been in situations where a client's like, oh, hey, I'm at Stone Tile. Do you think you could come meet me here? And I'm like, well, in my head, I'm thinking, no, frick, I'm doing something completely different. But at the same time, I'm like, if I don't go, they're going to pick the wrong tile. I better go. So of course I go. Or I've had the call, hey, I'm at Circan Tile. Can you just talk to the reps so I can get your discount? Oh my God. Yes, I've had that. It's the worst. To which I'm like, sure, absolutely, no problem. And I'll talk to the rep and say, well, this is our policy. We do like whatever it was back then. I think I did cost plus 20. And I said, you can split it with them or what have you. But then afterwards, I call that rep and I'm like, what the what? Like, why did you think that was okay to call me when you know this is not how I do business? So again, that's having good relationships with good reps. Anyhow, I digress. What was I talking about again? Getting back to, oh yeah, so picking everything in advance and the side benefit. The side benefit to that is, okay, so the big benefit is you are in control. You control the process so that there's a boundary. Your client is not giving you feedback on a regular basis. Yes, they can email you, but I do tell them, like we send them an email pretty firm and we say, after next week, please do not add more pins or send us more because we're really starting to work on the design. So that is your deadline to get all those design ideas to us, leave it with us. And then at the presentation, there's room for more conversation, right? Because otherwise it's like, oh, I've picked all the appliances. I've picked a copper sink. And then all of a sudden the client 3 weeks later says, oh, I'd really like a porcelain farmhouse sink. And you're like, seriously? And now I have to pay time for my team to reselect, which would be fine if I charged hourly, but I don't. Okay, the side benefit is that you get a yes so much easier from your clients because there's so much power in seeing everything together, seeing how it works, seeing the elevation, seeing the physical samples. And like we always have physical samples, like touch the hardware, touch the cabinet door, look at the paint color, feel the fabric, right? And when they see it all laid out on the table, they are usually A, impressed, B, excited, and C, blown away by the sheer volume of work that we've put together. And quite often I have clients say like, wow, like that was a lot of work. You guys did so much. Like, wow, 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 wow. Thank you. And that doesn't mean there's no revisions. There's always revisions. There's always something that needs to change. But I find that since I've been doing it that way, and we do not give options, we do not give choices, I will have backups in in the other room when clients come, so that if there's wallpaper is something I always have a million options for because it's super personal, but I try to make sure I have a few key ones that I think work with the scheme. Like that's the trick. If you have a powder room and you're like, oh, this floral wallpaper looks so good with the hardwood floor and the gold hardware and all that, and you really want them to pick it, but you know that floral might be pushing it, so then you get a stripe and a plaid that also work with all the other elements. Because if you have to give them multiple options, then you should charge more money because you're doing that design 2 to 3 times, right? That's 2 to 3 times the work and the man hours. Just saying. Okay, I'm coming back. So that's the side benefit. And that really helps, I think, stop a lot of client objections that you would get during the design phase. I don't get objections anymore where I show the client something and they say, well, I think that chair is a little too deep. Maybe it's too contemporary or what have you. I also don't get clients feeding me companies like, hey, I saw this light. Can we use it? And the only reason they don't do that is because I tell them at the very beginning, we are full service and we do not drag our clients around. We take what we can from you and then we design behind the scenes to come up with a beautiful presentation. It's very important that you word it how you want them to experience working with you. If you don't vocalize how you want them to experience it, then they're going to start to, what's the word? It's like the ball then is in their court. So for example, I'm starting to discuss, we bought a little piece of land, which I'm very excited about, and we're going to build a house and in the country. And so I started chatting with a builder and I'm like, okay, like what's going on? I'm taking the reins, like here, I've got this. And then he just sent through an email saying, here's our process. This is the first thing you need to do. Have a look at this document. And all of a sudden I felt more relaxed. I was like, oh, okay, great. Okay, amazing. I just want to follow your process, give you what you need, give you my input because this sounds wonderful. And I would guess that a lot of design clients are looking for you to take the reins. And it's when you give them the reins a little bit that's when things start to go off the, what's the word? Off the rails, falling off the rails. Anyways. The boundaries with your clients is something that is a bigger discussion than can fit into one podcast. It's all the tiny little idiosyncrasies that go through your communication with your clients and how you manage crises when a crisis comes up. I will tell you that this is taking me a long time to work on. By no means have I perfected this. These are just the few things that have helped me. I hope some of these ideas will help you in your business. Let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram, guys. I'm there. You can go to Resilient by Design, Ms. Rebecca Hay. I guess that's the Ms. Rebecca Hay account. Or you could go to Rebecca Hay Designs on Instagram. Send me a DM. I would love to hear, are there other little things, or are you in a situation, tell me, if you're in our Designer Meetup Facebook group, that is the place to voice because it's private, it's safe. We only let design professionals in that group. If you're having an issue with a client and you don't know what to do, please join our group. We'll share the link in the show notes. And voice your question, your concern, and let the community help you because we're all in this together, collaboration over competition. The more we share our experiences and what's worked and what hasn't in the past, the stronger we are all going to be. And it's just going to make life easier. Shoot, that's what it's about. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast and I will see you soon.